So the source of funds, also known as the SOF, is the documentation of an EB-5 investor's lawful source of investment capital. It's basically the U.S. government's way of making sure that the funds have been lawfully obtained. So per USCIS requirements, an EB-5 investor must invest his or her own capital, establish that they are the legal owner of the capital invested and they obtained that capital through lawful means, and document the path of the funds to establish that the investment was made or is actively in the process of being made. And with that criteria, you need, first and foremost, that the investment amount meets the EB-5 requirements, the investment capital was lawfully obtained, the capital was invested in a new commercial enterprise, also known as an NCE. Now, it's very important to ensure that the source of funds documentation is completed before wiring funds to the project or even submitting the I-526E petition, because you want to make sure that you are in fact eligible for this EB-5 visa and eventual green card before moving those funds into the investment. So you've got ordinary income, and that is money earned either by the investor or spouse. You've got capital gains, which is money earned by the investor or spouse from the sale of an asset for a gain on investment. You've got gifts or inheritance from family or friends. So that is exactly what it sounds like. It's money gifted outright with no expectation of repayment to the investor or spouse, or funds willed to the investor or spouse. And then the last one is loans from family or friends or companies. And this is money lent to the investor or spouse at market terms from a third party with or without collateral. So, some of the problems are, translations of foreign documents, providing appropriate taxes, proving that appropriate taxes have been paid, and tracing from source to current account. Some of the questions that USCIS is really interested in is, how and when did you earn this money? What services were you paid to perform? What taxes did you pay? Where have the after-tax funds been since you earned them until today? So this is really what USCIS is looking for. But generally speaking, you want to show proof that taxes have been paid through tax statements. And then also, if there's some type of governmental website that confirms what the tax structure is, then that's also helpful to include as well. So with capital gains, the focus is on the initial principal investment made in assets. So that can include real property, equity, fixed deposits, etc. Now, sometimes, people are unsure about, well, my company is, 15 years old and I don't have, I may not have proof of that, of the funds that initially went into the company. You basically want to prepare as much direct evidence as possible to show proof of lawful funds, and then for years that are maybe outside of document retention policies or anything like that, you basically want to find indirect indirect pieces of evidence. And even if the sale or the purchase is made in cash, it's really important to make sure that the cash that was paid for that asset came from a lawful source. So, gifts, inheritance from family or friends, you basically need to establish that the investor is the rightful heir of that asset, and document how the initial asset was purchased by the donor. A lot of questions that we do receive are, can they take out a loan or borrow using, their inheritance as collateral? And in short, yes. Say you inherit a piece of property, so a multifamily unit or an apartment building or hotel or something. You can use that as collateral against a loan that you're seeking in order to invest that money into the EB-5 investment. So a personal loan, has to have terms comparable to that of a commercial bank loan. So in case of a loan from a person or a non-financial institution, the lender must provide documentation of source of funds. So an ideal option is to acquire an uncollateralized loan from a financial institution, because that basically avoids, the issue of proving the source of the collateral. So first and foremost, you do need to prove who the investor is. That is through the passport, birth certificate, driver's license. Second is you want to prove that there's a real asset. So the current appraisal showing that the asset is worth more than the loan amount. And then third is to prove that the investor actually has it. So the source of funds used to purchase the asset or inheritance documents showing how the title has passed. So due to Ethiopia's strict currency controls, directives, and policies, it's become very, very difficult to transfer ETB out of Ethiopia. So, the big question, the million-dollar question is, how can Ethiopian investors transfer and or acquire US dollars to contribute to EB-5 projects without jumping through policy hoops and paying, outrageous exchange rates? And I've seen it done, kind of two different ways. I would say most of my clients, a lot of them have US business associates who are willing to loan that amount needed at, of course, market return rates. And then, in time, they get paid back. And then I have a smaller subset of, clients who have businesses in Ethiopia as well as countries outside of Ethiopia. And what they do is they use the funds from the business that's outside of that's outside of Ethiopia to then transfer those funds into the US because depending on the country, it's much easier transferring that than the Ethiopian birr.